What's going on YouTube? TeamSC back online here and welcome to the Overwatch Offense Hero Overview. Now we just had a huge patch with the release of Sombra and multiple hero balance changes, so I figured it was time to get an updated guide out there for the community. This is intended to be a one-stop shop going over all of the heroes in the offense category for Overwatch. It'll be intended for beginners and intermediate players alike. We will go over all hero abilities, including technical data like raw damage output and cooldown times, and also a basic summary of how each hero should be played and their best situations, more or less. We'll also include a couple of tips and tricks that you might not have heard of before, so stay tuned. Let's get started. Alright everybody, first on the list is Soldier 76. He does have 200 health points, which is about average for most characters on the Overwatch cast, and he also has a passive ability, Sprint, which can be activated by pressing the left shift button. As you can see, it does boost his movement speed, and it'll stay on as long as you want to keep it on. You can press shift again to toggle it off, or if you start shooting your weapon or use any of your abilities, it'll disengage your Sprint as well. But Sprint is useful, helps you flank enemies, get back to your team after dying, and even run away from the enemy if you're outmanned and need to live to fight another day. His main weapon is the heavy pulse rifle, which is this right here. As you can see, we'll just kind of let loose and kill a couple of these pesky robots. Now the pulse rifle does do between 5 and 20 damage, so 20 damage, which is the max, will be at kind of closer in mid ranges. 5 damage is a fall off damage, which pretty much means the further a character is away, your bullets essentially do a little less to them. Now I don't know how far away, because Soldier's gun usually goes a pretty good distance, and I haven't really been in a situation where I've tried to shoot something that I couldn't hit. As you can see, I can still hit those robots way across the map. Now I'm not doing my max damage, I'm doing somewhere between 5 and 20, but the least amount of damage you'll do at the farthest distance you hit an enemy is 5. So with that being said, one clip of Soldier 76 will dish out roughly exactly 500 points of damage after this last patch. 1,000 damage if you manage to get headshots. And also, since this is a new video, for those of you who don't know, headshots mean your weapon will do twice the amount of damage as normal. As you can see, just shooting this robot in the body, it takes us a couple hits. But if we shoot this robot in the head, that time is halved, as we're doing 40 damage a shot instead of the normal 20. So his weapon does take 1 second to reload. During his ultimate, that time is decreased to only half a second. And it does shoot 10 rounds a second, so it takes about 2.5 seconds to empty an entire clip and shell out 500 damage. So Soldier 76 does have considerable output. In addition to this, his weapon has a mechanic known as hit scan, and which pretty much means whatever's on your crosshair, whenever you push the button, you will hit it. Even if it's far off in this distance, you click, it's going to auto hit your target, since there's no bullet travel time, which is what hit scan essentially means. So Soldier 76 can be useful for picking off some hard to hit characters and characters who are trying to stay back in the distance, like supports or even Pharahs that are flying around the sky. Soldier excels at dealing with those threats. Soldier's second weapon is the Helix rocket, which can be fired once every 8 seconds, which is really not that long a cooldown. And actually, I think that robot had some damage on him, because this Helix rockets only do 120 damage. Doesn't matter how far or close you are to the enemy, or if you hit them in the head or not, it will always do a standard 120. Now one notable thing about these rockets is they do a little bit of splash damage, so if you manage to get them off close to a group of enemies, it'll do 120 to the primary target and up to 80 splash damage to anybody within the vicinity of the person you're shooting. But also, just keep this in mind, try not to fire pulse rockets off when the enemy is in your face, because they do actually do 40 splash damage to yourself, okay? So if it can be avoided, try not to kill yourself with your own pulse rockets, but if it's going to kill the enemy and keep you alive, by all means go ahead and do it. Next ability on the list is actually his Biotic Field, which lets you pretty much set up this healing field. It's about 5 meters. And it recovers 35 health points a second, so that means it will recover a maximum of 175 HP over the course of 5 seconds that it stays up. And it doesn't only heal yourself, it'll heal your teammates as well. So Soldier 76 is useful because he's a solid DPS, but can also help heal his team as well and act as like a pseudo healer. And a notable thing a lot of people don't know about the Biotic Field is actually, if I place it here on the ledge, all my teammates that are underneath me will actually get healed. So if you're ever Soldier 76 and you're posting up on a ledge, just make sure your teammates know to kind of hang close to you, because you can actually give them some healing from the high ground if they're below you. And it actually has a little bit of vertical distance as well, but it's not as much. I think it's only like maybe 5 meters up as high. So about the width of this is how high it goes. So if there's any Pharahs on your team, they can get a little bit of the healing love as well. So last but not least, Soldier 76's ultimate ability is the Tactical Visor. And essentially what this does is it means you don't have to aim. It lasts for 6 seconds, which means you can get about exactly 2 clips out of it, dealing 500 damage. But the thing note, excuse me, 1,000 damage. So over the course of this ultimate, you can do 1,000 damage, guys. And that's saying a lot. As you can tell right here, we're just killing things. We reload our clip quicker than we normally do, because as we said, once this ultimate's active, it only takes half a second to reload instead of the full second. And you pretty much don't have to aim. You can just really eat through a bunch of squishies or do some serious damage to 2 tanks. But ideally, you want to use this ultimate to get hard to hit targets that are far away, like Pharahs flying in the sky, flanking and getting their supports from the backlines, or just even using this to bait out enemy ultimates that will defend their team, so your other team can use their better ultimates to get a whole team kill. So Soldier 76 definitely well-rounded. Another notable thing about his ultimate is don't worry about his how you say, clip being empty. Let me just charge his ult again real quick, and here we'll just go to get some ult charge and just do a bunch of stuff. Got a little healing going. And I just want to show you one more thing a lot of people don't know, and just something you don't have to worry about. So here, and actually I did it out of habit, so let me go ahead and waste this. As you can see, my clip is down to just 3 shots. Don't worry about it. Once you cast your ult, your clip is auto-loaded back to full 100%. So you're always guaranteed to get 2 full clips with this ultimate, which is the good thing. Very user-friendly, very easy to just wreck shop and do a bunch of damage to everybody. One thing to note about it is it does not do headshots when the ultimate is going, because that would be broken. So it's just going to always do the body damage, which means 1,000 max, 518 minimum if they're all super far away. So in summary, guys, Soldier 76, solid DPS character, prefers to keep his enemies at mid-range, kind of staying on the high ground and out of close-to-close combat. But if someone does get close to you, you can do a lot of damage. I mean, oh, actually, I forgot to mention one of the most important things about his weapon. But anyways, before we do the summary, notice this real quick, that after about 3 bullets, my crosshair is going to increase, which means my bullet spray becomes less accurate and just kind of shoots all over the place. Now, while at close range, this spray doesn't really make a difference. You can hold down your trigger all night, all day. At a long range, this is where it's really applicable to actually utilize kind of a burst shooting method. So what you can do to keep your shots more accurate at long range is actually just hold down the trigger and just try to empty about 3 bullets, and then let go, and then do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. And as you can tell, every time I let go of the trigger, my crosshair resets. So this lets you stay accurate at long ranges, and definitely good for getting some long range headshots or trying to take out enemies far off in the distance, and keeping it accurate. Because if you're just spraying like this far in the distance, you're barely going to hit like 1 bullet every now and then, versus if you're just doing like this, a lot easier to kind of get those far away targets. So anyways, yeah, back to what I was saying. In summary, Soldier 76 likes to keep his enemies at mid-range, does a lot of damage, definitely a lot of room for abuse. He does have a health pack which can act as a pseudo healer on your team, especially with good coordination. And on top of that, he's got mobility options. His sprint allows him to flank, get away from the enemy, get back to the fight after dying. Just a lot of good utility in this hero, a lot of things he can do, and even kind of a pseudo tank buster, because if they get close to you, tanks have a huge hitbox. You don't even have to really aim. All you gotta do is just hold your trigger down and you'll just rip through things like nothing, guys. Like 500 damage is insane. Another tip and trick is you kind of want to try to take engagements where you kind of have to force your enemy to funnel. Like notice, even like if you don't have the best aim in the world, try to use your positioning. Like if I have enemies attacking from here and I'm kind of back in this thing, they have to come in from the front. And if they come in from the front, it's real easy to just pull down the trigger and just spam all that damage through all the enemies funneling, especially if they're all grouped up together. Even if they have a Rhine behind them, you can eat through Rhine shields pretty quick with this character, guys. So all in all, Soldier, definitely a good character, good all-around hero. Definitely good if you're playing solo, because he can kind of take care of himself with his mobility and his healing options. Alright guys, so let's go to next on the list.
Young punks, get off my lawn.
Alright everybody, next on the list is Pharah, the human transformer, at least if you have this skin that is. Pharah is a DPS character who also has 200 HP like most of the cast does. Her passive ability is Hover Jets, which by hitting the spacebar and holding it down lets you kind of fly up in the air and even kind of hover a little bit. As you can see, the fuel meter does go down, and once it's empty it'll eventually come back down to the ground. Her primary weapon is a rocket launcher, so if any of you have played Halo 3 back in the day and played rockets, this is kind of what this hero is like all about, just kind of firing volleys and volleys of rockets at your enemy. She does have 6 rockets she can shoot in one clip, and it does take approximately 1 second to fire a rocket, so 6 seconds to empty her clip completely. Each rocket does do 120 damage for direct hits, and they actually do a little bit of splash damage as well. There's a small splash radius that does kind of varies, kind of hard to say, but it's between 13 and 80 damage in the splash radius. As you saw, we kind of got those robots coupled together and they both got hit by the splash damage and died at the same time. It does take 1 second to reload, which is about average for most weapons on all the DPS characters. Now there is a notable thing here. Rockets also hurt yourself, so try not to blow yourself in the face. Even if you like shoot the ground, you can do a lot of damage to yourself that way, so you want to try and keep away from the enemy and shoot these rockets from a distance. Another thing about these weapons is that they do have travel time. As you can see, it takes a couple seconds before we actually get to the other side of the map, so if you're firing rockets at enemies that are moving, this weapon requires a lot of good anticipation to actually hit your marks. Ideally you want to stay hovered a little bit and kind of aim at an angle towards the ground, and you want to try to aim where you think the enemy will be in 1, 2, 3 seconds. It just depends how far you are where you want to be aiming. So it does require a little bit of getting used to land a couple of good solid rocket hits, but once you get used to it, they are a lot of fun and real easy to use. Another thing, her shift ability. You guys thought the hover was a lot. Nope, this character can use super jump pack. Well, it's not called super jump pack, they're just called jump jets, but pretty much the jump pack excels her high into the sky, and then we can even hover on top of that, guys. So Pharah has a lot of mobility, a lot of options for getting around the map, can just pretty much fly. This character essentially just flies, and a little trick with the hover ability is actually by slowly hitting the spacebar on and off. As you can see, we can minimize the amount of fuel we lose and stay in the sky a lot longer than just holding down spacebar. So if we just hold down the spacebar, as you can see, fuel dies right away, but if we just kind of tap it slowly, we can really stay in the sky a long time, at least until these jump jets refuel. The jump jets have about a 10-second cast time, not cast time, cooldown time, so you can only use it once every 10 seconds, but it's pretty easy to stay in the sky almost the whole time if you actually get that kind of a pacing method down to kind of minimize the amount of fuel you use. On top of this, she has another ability called the Concussive Blast, which pretty much fires this weird EMP-ish type thing that knocks enemies back a set knockback. Anybody in the area will be knocked off the map, or not off the map, kind of knocked back from where you shoot it. But this, now that I said that, this can actually knock people off the map. So if this guy was like, actually, let me try and not die here. Oh, well, I don't think we're gonna get the robot to move over there. But if they're like close to the edge on maps with like cliffs and places you can fall to your death, you can actually use this ability to kind of boot them off the map and get some free cheeky kills that way. It's a lot of fun to do, especially if you kill like 2 or 3 people trying to cross a bridge. Definitely a big laugh. But another way to use this ability that a lot of people don't know of is to actually help with your movement. If you cast this against the wall, it will actually knock you back a set amount as well. And if you manage to use your hover or jump jets at the exact, not the exact same time, but like a smidgelet after you cast the ability, then you'll actually get some propulsion. Like, see, I hover, I move like this, not too fast. But if I'm like right here and I need to get away quick, I just hover, jump jets, and as you can see, I just like got all that distance super quick. So good Pharahs know how to utilize that to navigate the map and get out of trouble quickly and just kind of keep your range and stay far, far away. Pharah, far away, guys. Last but not least, there is her ultimate ability, Barrage, which is crazy. Lasts 3 seconds long, dealing 40 damage per rocket, but she unleashes a volley of rockets. So the maximum damage for this is somewhere around 2,500, a little bit more. It's hard to really calculate because, as you can see, we're just going to unleash a volley of death, guys. Now, one thing to notice with this rocket ability is that once she uses her ultimate, she is stationary for 3 seconds, so you really want to be careful and try to not have yourself in a situation to where you're going to get sniped easily. because it's real easy for you to get sniped and killed by the enemy team while you're casting that ability. But if you do manage to pull it off, you can actually wreck the enemy team super easily. That ultimate combos well with characters like Zarya, who can use their gravitational beam to kind of keep everybody stuck in the same area, and then you just unleash a volley, kind of destroy everybody. You do need to watch out though, D.Va's defense matrix can block your ult entirely, so you don't ever want to do that, because then you will cry and be sad. If you're thinking about a Ryan Shield, your ultimate does go through the Ryan Shield and will also continue to do more damage after it's cast. As you can see, we'll unleash an... Hold on, we're stuck. Bird down. Well, we'll unleash another volley from the sky, and you can see we could just fire rockets just everywhere. So, good ultimate, but you need to use it smart. Try not to be out in the open when you do it, especially if you're like way in the sky and they've got like heroes that can snipe you out like Widowmaker. So some things to note. Pharah, in summary, she's pretty simple and easy to use. Definitely has a lot of mobility to her kit. She is able to fly away and stay far away from the enemy and just kind of hail down rockets from the distance, and just more like a huge barrage and waves of rockets. Pharah pairs good with characters like Zarya, who can use their ultimates together in sync to really wreck the enemy team, and also support characters like Mercy, who can hover and kind of follow you around. A good Pharah with the good Mercy will stay alive high in the sky, doing damage for days to the enemy, everybody. All in all, Pharah, pretty easy to use. You do want to watch out for heroes with the hit scan ability, as we mentioned earlier with Soldier 76, because they can take you out of the sky fairly easily, especially if they have good aim. But if they don't have good aim, then don't worry about it. So 76 and Mcree are your enemies, Mercy is your friend, Zarya is your friend. Alright, I think that's pretty much it to say for Pharah. Let's go ahead and move on to the next character, everybody.
Play nice, play Pharah.
Alright everybody, third on the list is none other than the Desperado Mcree. I am a little partial to this character, maybe because I'm from Texas, but for those of you who don't live in Texas, no, we don't really wear cowboy hats or ride horses anymore, but occasionally you'll find a gentleman or someone like Mcree walking around the streets, but not all too often. So without further ado, Mr. Mcree here has 200 health points, which is pretty much average, as we've mentioned with all the other heroes before. Mcree, however, does not have a passive ability, but he does have a couple of cool utilities in his kit. So he does have, his main weapon is the Peacekeeper, which is 6 shots. Each shot does between 35 and 70 damage, 35 being the fall off damage at longer ranges at the max distance his weapon goes, and 70 being the damage he does up close. This weapon does have the ability to headshot, which can make dealing with enemies up close relatively easy, especially if you have good aim. Now he does take about half a second to shoot each of his bullets off, so he will empty his clip in about 3 seconds, but he's got a second fire option, which is called his Fan the Hammer, which will allow him to empty out his entire clip. So if you have 6, it will empty his full clip in just under a second. I think it's like 0.85 a second, and you can actually take enemies out pretty easy using that ability right there. Now when you do actually fire that way, you cannot get headshots, so the max damage for fanning the hammer is about 270. Each bullet, when you shoot it that way, only does between 25 to 45 damage, 25 being the long range fall off damage, 45 being the up close and personal damage. So you can't do as much damage when you shoot that way, but you are able to do a lot more damage quicker that way, especially useful if enemies are close to you or getting up in your face. Mcree also has another ability called the Combat Roll, which by using the shift button allows him to do this quick little combat roll, kind of get you out of combat a little. Yeah, combat roll, lol. Gets you out of the way a little bit, lets you kind of shift right, left. You can be going backwards, combat roll backwards, you can go left, right, and the main thing with the combat roll is it will actually reload your gun for you. So if your clip's empty, you're on 1, but you have a roll, you can actually roll out the way and then boom, full clip again, and just keep fanning the hammer and doing all kinds of torture. His other ability in his kit is his Flashbang Grenade, which can be used by pressing the E button. Now this flashbang, it has a very small radius that it stuns. Only lasts for about 0.7 seconds, I believe. What did I write here? I don't know. It's like 0.7 seconds is how long it stuns the enemy for, and it does do a little bit of damage but does not headshot. So when you throw at the enemy, it'll do about 25 damage, and for just a small amount of time they're actually stunned. So a combo people like to do, especially if there's characters flanking running and getting up close and personal to use. Usually just stun them and hit fan the hammer, and then you can actually use the shift to reload your clip and fan the hammer again if you need to. So definitely some good utility for this character. Mcree is kind of an interesting one on the DPS lineup because he does have the ability to do a lot of DPS, but he is very skill heavy because you want to get headshots with this character. If not, you'd probably be better off playing as Soldier 76 as he is more forgiving than Mcree, but Mcree still has a lot of potential, especially up close. If you got good aim as Mcree, you can take people out in like 2 shots under a second, just done and done. Also on top of that, Mcree weapon is also hit scan, which means it doesn't have whatever your crosshair's over, it doesn't matter how far away it is, unless it's just completely out of range, you will hit it. So Mcree is good for dealing with Pharahs in the sky and other enemies that are just kind of far away. As you can tell, my aim is not the best, so I'm a decent Mcree, but not the best Mcree in the world. He does have his ultimate ability, which is Dead Eye. What it'll do is it'll just start charging up, and for each second it charges, it will do 200 damage to all enemies that are in line of sight. So you have to be mindful. Once you use this ability, you're extremely vulnerable. You can still move a little bit, you just move very slow, but it is very easy for the enemy team to target you and take you out. So ideally, the longer you can keep this alive, the more damage you do. As you'll see after about a second, we should be able to kill all of these robots in our line of sight. And once the red skulls pop up, that means you can kill them. When it's white, like the one on my far right, it means he's on my radar, but he's just out of the way. Now, a notable thing about this is that once you use this ability, you can actually see people through the wall. So once you use this ability, as you can see, that guy had the white circle over him. As you can see, he went behind that wall. We couldn't even see him there. But when I had my alt go in, there's actually a little white circle showing him. So just a little thing to keep in mind, that once you use this ability, not only are you trying to get your kills and whatnot, but you can actually see where other enemy teams are. So you might notice a white circle show up, and that's where one of the enemy team members is currently at the moment. So his ultimate does leave you very vulnerable, but does have high reward if used well. So ideally, Mcree requires a lot of synergy. You want like a Zarya who can bubble you to keep you alive in case they try to focus fire you. You want maybe a Ryan shield to be behind when you use his ultimate, or what most commonly happens is Mcree's try to flank and get behind the enemy and just catch him by surprise. But I do encourage a lot of discretion while doing that, because a lot of times it will actually just end up with you dying horribly, because people have gotten really good at dealing with Mcree's ult as of late. So a lot of times you won't be able to get much damage done with it. Worst case scenario, you can just use it and right away just shoot off the volley and get like a little bit of damage done. But ideally, this ultimate has a lot of reward if you can plan it well with your teammates, like maybe a Graviton Surge from an allied Zarya, get them all in the same spot, and just stay real far away and just kind of get them here. The thing about this is that you can be all the way on the other side of the map, and you can still kill them with this ultimate. And it'll keep charging 200 health points each second. So a little thing to note, like for example, if you use your ultimate and then you're up against like a Lucio, and they use this break it down to where everybody gets a bunch of extra shields, then all of a sudden you can't kill anybody, you can actually just keep charging your ultimate and you'll still get more and more damage as the seconds go. And it lasts for about 10 seconds, guys, so I'll let you do the calculations, but you can do a lot of damage. And as you can see, those guys even far on the end are still getting targeted over there, and we shoot at kind of everybody. I think they just got out of my range way back there, but it does have solid range. Definitely good. So Mcree, he is a solid DPS choice. His flashbang and fan the hammer makes him good at dealing with flankers. So if you have like a Genji or Tracer that are trying to keep sniping your your support behind the I can't talk right now. If they're like sniping your support, I need some water. So for example, if there's like a Genji, Tracer, Reaper, somebody who's just flanking you, being really annoying, killing off your supports, Mcree is usually a good pick because Mcree can kind of hang back with the support, still do his damage safely while the tanks stay at the front line. But once a flanker tries to come get the jump on your guys, you just stun them and just deal with that. So that's where kind of Mcree excels. He is a good DPS option, but when you pick this character, you kind of want to make sure you have a team that's all on the same page and a team that can actually help you. So if you don't have like a Ryan shield to stay behind or good supports to keep you healed, because Mcree has no healing options and he does have poor mobility. He has his little roll, but other than that, he's pretty much a sitting duck wherever he goes. So he works well if you have a team that has good synergy with him. Not the best for playing solo by himself. If you are going to do that, you're probably better off picking the Soldier 76 or maybe even a Pharah. But he does have a lot of potential, and like I said, getting headshots with Mcree, you'll take things out like nothing. So definitely a high skill level for Mcree if you do have good aim and get a lot of headshots, he's definitely worth your while. Alright guys, so I think these videos are actually taking longer than I expected, so I'm going to break them up into 2 videos. This one will be the first half of the Offense Hero Overview, and I'll work on pumping out another one including Sombra and the rest of the flanker characters and things like that. So let me know what you think. Please leave a like, please comment, I enjoy reading your comments, and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all the videos, guys. Anyways, till next time.
Not good, not bad, but I sure as hell ain't ugly.